Welcome to Relationships Matter, the podcast. I am Chanel Scott.
And I am Josh Powell. Yes.
So guys, Josh and I, we're going to be having the difficult conversations yet elevated dialogue surrounding romantic relationships.
Debbie, come talk to me. Make sure you check your energy. We must be honest. We've all been hurt before. We've all been broken. Oh yeah. But let's talk about love, lust, sex, and trust. Oh, yeah. Baby, we just getting started. How do you deal with rejection? How do you deal with your companion? This is everything we talk about on the show. Relationships matter. I need you to understand. Relationships matter.
So Josh, we're going to be discussing today, do you feel safe in your relationship? Safe to disagree? Safe to bring up a concern with your partner regarding their behavior that's impacting you in a negative way?
Don't forget, safe to be yourself.
Well, it's all tied in, absolutely. So I want to start here though. What does it mean to feel safe in a relationship?
Well, as for me, as I just mentioned, my perspective is basically like being able to be yourself. I think a lot of times when we do get into a relationship, we're trying to fit a mold for the other person, or the other person's trying to fix the other person, or different things like that, and not really accepting him or her to be who they naturally are, whether that's goofy, whether that's weird. They could be a reader. They could be somebody who's quiet into themselves. They could be a person that's trying to, overcome some of the things that's happened in their lifetime and trying to figure out how to heal and how to grow. Do you have the patience for that person to do that?
Absolutely.
Can you allow a person to finish a thought? Can you hold a conversation? All of these things that, are truly important is something that's definitely needed for the person to be who they are, for them to mature into what they should be. Because naturally, when you feel safe, you'll do things without thinking about them. You know what I mean? And you'll actually put your partner first. And it kind of may not feel like that to the other person, but you absolutely will, because it's just natural.
I think so. In the context of a relationship, for me, myself, I know there have been times where maybe, if you're really interested in someone, you have a level of anxiety, and how do you break that wall down though, especially in a new situation where you can arrive to a place where you actually feel safe? That's a process to getting to know a person and finding out if you have good chemistry, great compatibility. How do you even get to a point where, you put in the effort to help that person feel safe?
For one, I feel like encouraging them. The best leader and example, the best example is to lead by example. And as you're wanting your partner to feel comfortable in being who they are, you show who you are. You might have to lead by saying, hey, I'm working through some things, you know what I mean? This is something that I like. This is something that I don't like. I just wanted to express and tell you ahead of time. And that way that gives them somewhat of a blueprint as you're trying to figure out your individuality in the relationship, because that's important too, right? A lot of times we lose ourselves because we're in this relationship and everything is like the person, but you got to make sure you're whole first. Okay,
so I have a question, because I'm gonna get all in your business.
That's cool.
Has there ever been a time where you felt like, you couldn't be yourself, or you didn't feel safe in a particular situation? What did that look like?
I won't necessarily say not be myself, but I do feel that in order to protect either the relationship or the other person's feelings, that I might have to dial back or do some things differently, and maybe have to address it later down the line, just kind of picking and choosing. That's a difficult, it's really a difficult thing, because you're fighting against so much, and I think naturally for all of us, you when you love a person, you want to make sure that, they're happy, even though that responsibility is not necessarily on you. You want to make sure that they feel seen or heard, or, you don't want to do something that might hurt them, or, they might feel, just had the word, but like you let them down or something like that, because you might have thought this way or moved this way in regards to a situation or a circumstance. So it's something that's a constant battle, I feel, for all of us. I'm in a different place and space where I am now versus then, because, I don't think it's fair for the man or the woman to lose themselves within a relationship. I feel that they should definitely do what they feel is necessary for themselves, but it's all about how you address it too.
I just know I've been in situations where I may not have felt emotionally safe. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. Especially in the beginning stages of a situation where you're getting to know a person, you're trying to develop a level of trust, and then there may be certain behaviors that may mimic something that you may have gone through, and because you don't feel safe, you find yourself being reactionary or responding in a way that may not be the most pleasurable, or, especially in the beginning stages. I just want to talk about, how do you overcome like those jitters in the very beginning, where you can both, like I'm learning now, to pace myself, like match people's energy, where I always ensure that me and the other person, we're on the same page, that I'm not moving ahead of the other person. So if they give, I give. If they dial back, I dial back.
So do you wait to have those difficult conversations?
In the beginning, you don't want to have the difficult conversations, because you don't want to be seen as the person is like, oh my God, that person's already trying to be serious. Or, they already, you know what I'm saying? Oh my God, they already are pushing for something, and we're just in the getting to know stages. So for me, I just try to manage how I feel, manage my emotion, observe the pace of the relationship. And if I feel like this person isn't putting in what I would like them to, then I will fall back.
I feel like that's how a lot of people feel.
But
and there's nothing wrong with that.
But then sometimes you can miss the cue, and you might think, well, this person ain't really into me. But it may not be that. It may be that it's still new and they're trying to get to know you.
Absolutely.
So it's just like, I know that nowadays, with how dating and relationships is, I'm intrigued when I watch when I people watch, right? I'll sit in a restaurant, or, if I'm out, and I'll watch couples, and I often wonder, like, wow, how did you guys get to that place where they may be holding hands or having a meal together, but you can tell that they're very much into one another. And I often wonder, like, how did you get to the point, where you feel so safe, they're hand in hand, like the guy is holding her hand, or maybe his arm is around her. Like, how do you get to that point, like that whole process before you get into the committed relationship?
Right.
Because, nowadays they have redefined this whole idea of dating. Like, you got the talking stage. Whereas back 15, 20 years ago, it was like, okay, so I'm attracted to you, you're attracted to me, we in a relationship. Well, now it doesn't work that way. You do a whole lot of talking before you get to the point where, you're like, we're in a relationship.
Yeah, I'm going to take a page from your book, because one of your favorite words, with being intentional. I think that when people are intentional, it sets the tone for a different path in regards to where the relationship can go. My perspective on it is, because I love to lead and be the person who will be open, transparent, vulnerable, or whatever. And when you open up that way, it makes the other person feel comfortable to want to do it. Because naturally what happens is, it's this tug of war thing, and you constantly watching to see what the other person is doing. Somebody has to be the leader. I'm the man. So I need to lead. And that's one of the things that I need to do by leading, is making sure that whatever it is that I've gone through, whatever my childhood traumas are, whatever my dating history looked like, whatever the topic is, I need to be able to express that, because I also want her to know, like, are you ready for this? Is this something that you want? Am I I might have looked good on the shelf, but then
men have to ask that though? Because I feel like when you're in a situation where, especially, I'm speaking from a woman's perspective, absolutely. Okay? Typically, we're not going to spend our time with you if we don't, you know what I'm saying? We're not attracted to you. So, like, in my experience, like, if what you said happened in a perfect world, that would be amazing for him to just outright say, how do you feel about me? What are your thoughts regarding, the pace of our relationship or how things are going? Like, if people really checked in like that, but they don't check in like that. They don't check in like that. Like, guys, the word intentionality. Intentionality is so key. I'm just afraid that there's just not a lot of men out there. Not that there are not a lot of good men, because I believe that there are good men out there, but I'm talking about people who are intentional about their dating lives, their relational, especially as a single person. Now, when you get married or you get in this committed relationship, you should be intentional. But for me, I want to help those people who are trying to get into healthy relationships. Right. When we come back, guys, we're going to continue having the conversation on how do you feel safe in a relationship.
Relationships matter. I need you to understand. Relationships matter.
Welcome back to Relationships Matter, the podcast. We are talking about how do you feel safe in the relationship. So, Josh, I want to know a time, and I'll share my experience as well, but I want to know a time, if you can, because we gotta catch people up to where you are, right? So you're married, so we gotta get there. So we gotta walk this path. So tell me a time where you felt emotionally unsafe, and how did you overcome that? Like, what did you do to overcome it?
It's a great question. First, I want to start with, for me, just being intentional, even at the beginning, the dating stages, before relationship and all of that. But I understand what the end goal is. And I feel that something that has helped me is to be able to speak about what my thoughts, my expectations were, my visions, where I would like to see us go, within the first couple of months or even within the first year or two. I think that it's a good thing for somebody, in my opinion, to put that out there, because even when we were talking, even during the break, right, it's interesting. A lot of times when people are in the beginning stage and you're unsure, you don't know, but people don't speak on that either. Nobody typically says anything as far as where they're at or what they would like to see. Even if you just want to have a intimate relationship with the person, and may not be on a relationship type of time, because people should be honest about what they want or where they're at.
So we doing that. Okay.
Listen, be honest. Be open. I feel like that's what causes so much damage, pain, and everything else with men and with women, because somebody's either playing this game or they're not being open or clear about where they're at or what space they're in. That's when it gets real tricky.
I can think of a time where in a particular, it was fairly new. There was, and I really liked the person. So, and it's different when you actually like the person, but there was a clear disconnect because the communication was lacking. Right. Okay. And then there was some level of, some people shy away from that conversation when you start talking about being in a committed relationship. Right. And then it could be tense, and then you don't want to be transparent. You don't want to be vulnerable. You don't want to share how you really feel for fear of how they may view you, or some people just don't want to know the truth. right? You know, so you hold back and you kind of play this game.
That's right.
Yeah, you go through this mind game in private. Like you going, you know, you calling your girls like, girl, like I want to have a conversation with them, but I just don't know. Or maybe I tried to have a conversation with them and he became, you know, he kind of deflected, if you will. So it's like, what do you do in those types of situations? Because
you know what you want. When you go to the store and you make that purchase, ain't no deflecting. Okay. We came here to handle business. Okay. So I feel like people should stand on that. And it's like for me, as an athlete, it has helped me in so many different spaces in my life because I understand, like, no matter the stage, no matter where or what the situation is, I'm here to do a job. I understand what my routine is. I know what I'm eating. I know what my nap time is. I know what songs I'm listening to.
But what about when people say, I'm just going with the flow? Like,
I'm
don't
gonna go
rush
with the flow person.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with the flow person. And I'm not big into rushing it, but again, when you being intentional with somebody and y'all vibing, it's clicking. Okay. Ain't nobody saying nothing about
so then
nothing.
We gotta be real with ourselves when it ain't clicking. So if it ain't clicking then you gotta and you feel disconnected, then you're like, okay, so maybe we're not, because there's a difference in having chemistry and being compatible. And then it just depends on where you are in that, you know, have you guys taken things to another level in terms of intimacy, you know, because sometimes men start acting weird.
Absolutely.
At the intimacy.
So the thing that I want to touch on real quick, because you said something, and it is powerful and it's so real, and so many people go through this, is that fear, right? But I challenge people to think about what's a bigger fear: being strung along, or actually ending something that should have ended.
Absolutely.
Alone. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't take into account the mental, the emotional, sometimes the physical stresses and pains that we deal with, right? Because heartbreak is very challenging. It is a real thing. Like people really do have a hard time with that, right? Or some people could say with rejection or whatever. So why play with that? Right. If you know that you might not be in a space to take somebody that done strung you along for a year. Right. Y'all sleeping together. Y'all going on dates. You know, you're investing and all of these things, only to come to find out that person says, I'm still not ready.
See, the thing, so what I have learned when what you just described goes on, a lot of times we as women and men, we either attach our value to someone's potential or live vicariously through a particular situation if we're going on dates and spending this time together, but we have no commitment. We don't know what's happening. And that's because we don't know who we are. And then that's what breeds low self-esteem. When you don't know who you are.
It breeds a lot of things.
It breeds a lot of things. So while we're on this part of the conversation, I would urge anyone who's listening, if you want to be in a committed relationship and if you want someone to take you serious, work on yourself first. Know what your purpose is. Know what God has called you to do. Know what your God-given assignment is. Be cool with you all by yourself. And then that way, when you connect with someone, if they're not vibing with you the way you want them to vibe with you, then you say next. You move on. It's okay. It's absolutely okay. But when you are living vicariously through a particular situation or attaching your value to a man or a woman, it never works. It just absolutely never works. And they don't see value in you. So I just want to add that piece.
Oh, you did that. I love it. I love it. And you have my vote on that, because self is always the best starter for everything.
So listen, what if I came to you and was like, Josh, you know, I just met this dude and I don't necessarily feel emotionally safe, or I don't think we're on the same page. Aside from what you just talked about, you know, having these transparent conversations, how would you advise me?
Ask questions. That's always a safe, and it doesn't feel like you're attacking a person or trying to open up this can of worms, but just to say, hey, I feel whatever it is that I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. I would like to know that one day, within whatever that looks like for you, can we have a conversation? I would like to express some things to you.
So now I'm going to challenge you.
Challenge, accept it.
Because I know we're in this elevated place, right? But just like you have daughters, right? And you got to give them the game.
I do.
You got to give them the game. And they come and they tell you, this is what's going on. And you back then, like, what? I'm just saying. Like, seriously, do you think they should even, like, if they're not feeling safe, if they say, you know what, I don't feel safe in this situation, or I'm afraid to express myself, or maybe the two people in the relationship, they just haven't created a safe space where they're still in the beginning stages. They're still trying to figure it out. Like, cause I just remember my cousin telling me when I would go to him and say, so this is going on. He'd be like, they ain't talking about nothing. Like, he wouldn't even let me get my thought out. He'd be like, they ain't talking about nothing, Chanel. So how would you advise your daughters? Look,
I'll definitely answer that.
We gotta listen.
When we come back.
Okay, when we come back. Okay.
Relationships matter. I need you to understand. Relationships matter.
Welcome back to Relationships Matter, the podcast. So before we went to break, I was asking Josh about this good game, because it would be a shame to have this man sit here with all this experience in terms of dating and relationship, playing the game, being intentional and not being intentional. We need to hear from you, sir.
We're always intentional. What's that last question you asked, though? We want to get to that.
I said, how would you advise your daughters?
Okay.
If they came to you and said, hey, I don't feel safe, or maybe he's not giving me the energy that I'm looking for. Maybe he's not communicating at the level that she may desire, or she may not even know how to have the conversation without feeling nervous or anxious.
Okay.
So how would you?
First, I would try to see if they would want to express to me the situation. Mm-hmm. And then we can role play. I feel like that's always something that can help, right? Okay. To put me in your shoes. Let me know how you see this. And then if all else fails, I always like to remind them and my sons, like, you matter. Your voice matters. How you feel, whatever your experience is, that matters. So even if the other person is not listening, or they're kind of trying to push away and having a needed conversation, then you need to give them whatever that works for you. It might be a one-time thing. It might be 3 is your limit, where you're like, all right, now I done came to you 1, 2, 3rd time's the charm for me to now have to make a decision for me. Mm-hmm. Because that's, in my opinion, that's what we need to get to, because there are some people who duck and dodge hard conversations, whether that be because they just don't know how to have them, or maybe they're just not in the space for whatever that reason is to have them. I don't know.
I want to talk to you about that. Ducking and dodging. Like, have you been in a space where you didn't want to have the difficult conversation? And let us know what you were thinking.
No, when that not where happening. I didn't want to have it. I want to have it.
Okay.
But I think too, knowing the person, how you can get that message to them is what matters. Because a lot of times the message can fall on deaf ears. Mm-hmm. You can package it perfectly, and it could still fall on deaf ears. And that's the unfortunate part of communication. So for me, it's like, if I feel like I got to keep repeating myself, then I'm going to move into something else.
But have you always been intentional?
I have, even when it's been on what I've been on. Okay. Absolutely. I'm gonna let you know. But even if I had a situation, I was with somebody, and I even let them know step by step, like, listen, I'm not I'm not willing to go to this point because you need to do some work. There's some thing like there's something that you're showing me that I'm not comfortable with. But I do want us to go in this direction, but I need to see this from you. If you're not willing to show me this, then we can't go here. It's just not going to happen. So whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and at that time it was, you need to get some therapy. You need to unpack some of this childhood trauma because the way you speaking to me, no bueno. We're not doing that. I don't speak to you that way. I deserve that respect in return. So that's like for me to be able to say that because it's important. Because you know what's funny, right? In a lot of relationships I've had, whenever I have that moment, because I'm human, I done spaz. Like, I can't believe you spoke to me like that. I can't believe you said what you said. But it's like, I'm dealing with that daily, weekly, monthly. And I let it go 20 times. 50 times. And the one time I say something, it's like I'm public enemy number one. And oh my God, I can't believe you feel this way. Or I can't. And it's like, nah, I don't know what that narcissistic gaslighting, whatever trick you trying to pull, but I have real reasons as to why I feel the way that I feel. Let me show you these receipts. This is not based on emotion. I'm showing you because look, you saying it right here. You said it in front of the kids. You said it to my family. You said it to your family. You said it to my friends. Like, no, this ain't, there's reason behind that.
But at what point in situations like that, do you say, okay, we have to change the way we engage each other, period.
Absolutely.
Whether we can't have conversation, whether we got to communicate through somebody else, or like at what point do you say, you know, this isn't working for me?
If I don't have kids with you, then the rules are pretty much.
And that's so foul.
It ain't foul for me.
So I want to talk about that.
Because I gotta see these people and I gotta deal with them.
Right.
So I try to do the best I can and create spaces and try to communicate in different types of ways, and whether it's through email, whether it's through text messaging, whether you try to do a phone call, whether it's a face-to-face. You know, I used to be able to phone somebody, but at this point, it's just like, man, the person gonna be who they gonna be. So now I'm just gonna switch it all the way up, all the way around. You know what I mean? But if I don't have to necessarily deal with you like that on that type of time, and if you're not respecting my wish, then I'll just fall away.
So you saying that if you have kids, then they get a pass? Is that what you're saying?
I ain't saying to get a pass, but it's just the effort and where I'm willing to go is different.
Right. You'll do a little bit more.
Yeah. And even for somebody that I truly care about and want to be with, I'm not saying that I don't give them the effort, but it's like, come on, man, like I'm not going to sit up here and we keep doing this hamster wheel thing. Like we going nowhere fast.
But listen, how do you balance that in your relationship? Like prior to now, how do you balance? Because people observe and watch, right? And they may say, okay, so you just let that slide with so-and-so. But when it came to the two of us, you gave me pushback. I
think people assume. Everybody doesn't always see the conversations that go on behind closed doors. And for me, I know I got a track record. So
of what?
It ain't perfect, but because I address it for sure. Everybody don't see everything, man, but trust me. Right. Because for me, like, relationships are hard, but they're not. That's just my opinion. There are some people in your life, man, there's such a flow and an energy, and y'all are on just cloud, and it's just, but it just takes effort to do that.
I do have a question. So because you've been married before, you've had, previous relationship, and then when you have a new relationship, how do you balance it and make the new person feel safe while you engage maybe an old situation? Like, how do you balance it where they feel comfortable, they feel safe, they feel like, okay, I'm not putting myself in a precarious situation, how do you do that? Where they like, okay, I'm not tripping, because that's got to be a lot.
It is. I'm going to think on it. get back to you. As soon as we come back, baby.
Relationships matter. I need you to understand. Relationships matter.
Welcome back to Relationships Matter, the podcast. So before we went to break, I was asking Josh, how do you make the new person safe when you're engaging, like maybe your children's mom, you know, someone in a previous relationship? Like, how do you balance that where they feel safe? Because you have to be able to have a relationship.
Absolutely. So one of the things is just having open dialogue, you know, speaking about some of the conversations that are had. The responsible thing to do is absolutely do an introduction. You know what I mean? Like, cause when you establish something and you get to a certain point, you know what I'm saying? And you feel like this person is going to be here. There absolutely should be, an introduction. You know what I mean? Because it's not just in regards to the kids. It's in regards to, their mother. You know what I mean? Because, you know, it's funny, like a lot of people feel like, oh, you feel some way because I moved on. You don't want to see me happy. You jealous, you this, you that. And that's not true, right? If we talking about community, I want to know who's around my kids. Mm-hmm. Everybody ain't making sound decisions. And unfortunately, some people feel like you have the wrong intention just because you might inquire, or you want to have some type of meet and greet because you want to know who's going to be around your kids. There's way too many studies. There's way too much that's shown on Instagram, social media, the news, all these moms or dads that move on, and these new people that come in that'll be around your kids that you don't know what they own. You don't know what trauma they come from. You don't know what their background, and you don't have no clue. But these people gonna be laying in the same house that your kids are in, and you can't ask no questions. You can't meet the person. Y'all can't try to establish some type of rapport with each other. I think that's a recipe for a disaster.
So how do you prepare the new person though? Because you're bringing them into a world that they know nothing about.
Absolutely. So that's a part of being intentional. You know what I mean? And I'm willing to express a lot of what needs to be expressed, because I do understand that as this person is still getting to learn me and learn the dynamic, they're learning about the other relationships and other things that are going on. Because it's still, no matter how healthy or unhealthy, this still is an extension. This is still family. It's an extension of family. I don't care who it is or what we're talking about. Everybody want to act up. Nah, that's family at the end of the day, right? My responsibility still is to make sure that if my kids are good, make sure mom is good. Like, that's how it's supposed to be.
Okay. So, but you know, in some of these scenarios, I'm not speaking specifically toward you, but you have these situations where men have previous relationships with children and they still be dipping in the cookie jar. So how do you make this person over here feel safe, trust you, feel secure in the relationship, and how you move when you engage family?
Because boundaries.
Okay.
Right? Everybody's situation is different. You have some people that engage and they're still dealing with the other person even though they've moved on. If that works for you, that works for you, right? Because I don't want us to be blind to the fact that people aren't moving, right, in a non-traditional way, but this is what it is. But I do feel like, out of respect for your relationship and your dynamic, what works for you, as long as everybody's on the same page and you have the same understanding, then you should be able to move forward, right? Me personally, in my situation, you have to establish boundaries. You know, I try to do the best that I can in having that dialogue at home. And then when I'm having dialogue with the moms, like, I do my part to communicate to the best of my ability. Now, everything doesn't always work the way that we would like, because the dynamics are completely different. In one situation, there is no communication at all. In another situation, there was a very big wall and huge boundary that was set, right? Where we'll communicate, but I try to keep it pushing, no extra, no nothing. And then in another situation, you know what I'm saying? Like, I try to just keep it straight on email or text. You know what I mean? Because people's intentions and I've had a history of people implying certain things at certain times and just stuff like that. So as I continue to grow and mature, I'm making sure I'm continuing to do a better job of establishing that. And it's not just for my wife. It's also at the same time, it's for my kids, right? They're innocent. So they're looking at all of these things, and then they're the ones who really hear, whether it's true or not, they're involved in adult conversations. They're hearing a lot of the things going on. They're also seeing for themselves, whether they're seeing what they see at my house, seeing what they're seeing at their house, or they're just involved in stuff as they continue to get older. So that's why for me, I have to be on what I'm on, have the boundaries, and just try to set the examples to the best of my abilities that I could set. And it's not easy. You know what I'm saying? Because people can be consumed by what they hear. They could be heavily influenced, right? That's another thing that I deal with. And it's a lot that goes into that. That's why I just try to focus on myself. Quick question.
Huh?
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, ask me a question.
Because I did want to ask for you, right? Conversation we were having earlier. What are 3 things, 2 or 3 things that you do feel safe about to openly express to a gentleman that you've just met or you're dating or dealing with? And then what are 2 or 3 things that would take time for it to come out?
I gotta feel safe. Like, I gotta feel like I could trust this person. It's very important to me that me and that person be on the same page before I go expressing anything.
So you don't have 2 or 3 baby things that you'll be like, you know what, I feel comfortable expressing this, and no matter what the situation or setting is, that I can come in and tell the person.
I express my level of interest. Like, if I'm, interested in seeing where things can go, I don't mind saying, so he don't get it misconstrued. I've been in situations in times past where it may have seemed like it was maybe something on business, but it was a personal interest. So as long as I know that we have, so a little bit about me. I have a bit of a complex, not so much because I'm healed. Like, I really am healed. My heart is healed. But I have promised myself that I would never allow another man to tell me he don't want me. A man will never be able to tell me he doesn't want me. Because the moment that I feel like our energies don't match, I'm going to leave. Like, if you don't want me, then I'm cool with that. Because for the first time in my life, literally, I am okay with Chanel. I'm okay with where I am in my life. I'm content and I'm happy with me. I'm not trying to be anybody else. I'm not trying to compete with anybody else. I'm cool with me. So I will never give a man another opportunity to tell me he don't want me, he don't like me, he don't want to be with me. That will never happen, because we as women are intuitive. We know these things before they even tell us, but we still try to hold on and still try to make it something that is not, and still try to push for something that is not, and tolerate and do all. I ain't doing all that. I bring too much to the table to do that. So if you don't like me, then we could just end this right now and move on.
So when we get back, right, from this break, I want to know, has your intuition ever been off?
I'll tell you when we come back from break. I don't know. I don't know.
Relationships matter. I need you to understand. Relationships matter.
Welcome back to Relationships Matter, the podcast. So before we went to break, you asked me a question.
I did. I wanted to know, does a woman's intuition ever be wrong? It
could be wrong, because there are men. I I had one situation that I know I was wrong, and I was kind of shocked because I was like, this guy said to me, Chanel, you haven't given me any energy. And I'm thinking, you ain't give me none either. What you want me to do? We were working on something, like we had some things that we were working on. So in the context of us doing that, this was someone who I dated previously, and then we now were working on some things together. He was my trainer. So, I guess, but see, this goes back to men wanting to be chased. I'm not chasing no man. I'm not.
Huh? We're going to spend a whole nother show. We're going to go back to that.
Listen.
Okay. I'm
not going to chase. I'm not going to pursue. Like, I'll let you know that I have interest, but again, like we was talking about during the break, there is a thing called PTSD for women and men, certain situations that remind you of maybe something that happened in the past, and we could be wrong. We could, it could be a misrepresentation of something that we experienced, and we think that that's it, and it's not. And so in this particular situation, I just think this guy in particular was used to women doing the pursuing or chasing, and that's just not something I'm gonna do. Again, I match energy.
Okay. I respect
so once we had the conversation and I let him know, what was happening, then we began to talk more. He began to pick up the phone and call me more, than he was.
So because we setting the example, we're gonna show people what a safe space looks like.
Yes.
So I'm gonna let you go first.
What?
So you can share
what I'm gonna share?
Something that's on you. That's on you to do. But we have a safe space. So we have to show people what this looks like. So you got to jump out there.
Josh.
And you got to share one thing.
About what?
So, for example, for me, okay. I'll lead it off there, boy, because you started to sink in that seat, boy. I will say, for me, I am a person with an open heart, an open mind. I come from a history of abuse, but I'm constantly working on myself. I do therapy. I do a lot of different things to heal, and I'm in my own journey, and I'm continuing to stay the course in this journey. And I'm not perfect, but I definitely will share that if somebody is willing to go on this journey and this ride with me, then you have at it. That's a light example of how we can grab the bull by the horns and share some things, right? Well, I didn't go into detail, but I want a person to know that I have history. And please be delicate with that, right? As a man or as a woman, if she expresses that. That's what that looks like, in my perspective and from my opinion.
Okay.
Now you can breathe a little bit.
I can breathe a little bit. I think I would, one of the first things that I would say is I have struggled with a tremendous amount of rejection in my life, which is why I do what I do, which is why I do this podcast, which is why I do my TV show Comministry, which is why I wrote my book, Relationships Matter. Struggle with a tremendous amount of rejection, low self-esteem, everything that I preach. I've gone through this, not knowing who I was, attaching my identity to, someone else, living vicariously through a relationship, living in comparison with someone else, trying to look like someone else, all these different things, struggle with not being chosen. I think any significant situation that I've ever had up until now, not because that we ain't doing that no more, but up until this point, there has always been someone else involved, and I have not been the one chosen.
Now, real quick, where I need to look. Real quick, I'm gonna look at you, but I'll look there. Y'all make sure y'all applaud her because she actually just did it and didn't realize that she was doing it. And you didn't think twice about it. You just shared some things about yourself and what you've been through.
Right.
Now, if I was the other person, right, or whoever's sitting on the other side of that, they have a decision to make.
That's going to be heavy for him, though, because he's going to be like, oh, God, I feel pressure to choose her. I might not want to choose her.
It ain't necessarily the pressure to choose her, but the pressure to want to learn more. So sometimes we might look at something a certain way, but if you feel like, man, that person just opened up to me, they just gave me piece and parts, now it's on me, right? What do I want to do? Where do I take this information? How do I proceed? That's why, in my opinion, what you did was so valuable and important. And if we can get more men, more women to do that, then we put that responsibility on the other person. Then it goes from there. Because guess what? He's doing you a favor if he says, Queen, I don't know if I'm ready or I'm willing. Now that might suck, right? It doesn't feel good, but at least you know. There's so much power in knowing. True. And I'd rather know versus I'm being strung along. I could have missed out on my queen. You could have missed out on your king because somebody done strung you along.
I think I feel more confident sharing that in this space because I'm cool with me now.
Amen.
You know, because I still feel like, now I don't experience the rejection and I don't experience he chose her over me, because in this season, for some reason, people finally see me, if that makes sense. Like in times past, I didn't feel seen, if that makes sense. Like no matter how much effort I put into a particular situation or what I tried to do, I just didn't feel like I was seen, or certain things that I did was received, or it just kind of fell on, it just was null, you know.
First, I want to say, thank you for sharing that, right? Because it's never easy for anybody to express anything that they went through, anything that they may be feeling at that moment. That's powerful, and I hope that people can understand the power in that. For me, in regards to this conversation of being safe and things like that, I think that first people have to do the self-work. You have to get yourself in a place where you're comfortable with who you are. Because once you do that, it doesn't matter what's being said or what's being found out about, because you're at the front of that. You're in the driver's seat. You know what I mean? And you express those things, but at the same time, you share what you're going through and how you're healing and how you're fixing those things. We all, lastly, and I'll kick it to you, we all have things that we've gone through. A lot of us have dealt with traumas. A lot of us have been in abusive situations or relationships, starting from children up into adulthood. So nobody's exempt. There's no perfection out here. And I just want to make sure that I nail that home as I kick it to you. But that's a lot of my takeaways from this conversation.
Okay. Well, before we close out, I did want to go over several ways that the people who are watching this show can implement in their relationship to make their partners feel safe. So the first one would be communicate with them, which is what we've been doing the entire show. Communication. Appreciate and celebrate them. Let your actions reflect what you say. Take yourself off the market. That's important. Like, that's a whole other topic with the whole multiple dating thing. I guess once you decide that you want to be in a monogamous situation, don't leave your partner hanging. And that can translate in business and personal relationships.
Absolutely.
Don't give them room to doubt your sincerity. And little thoughtful actions show them that you listen. And so, with that being said, we want to go ahead and close out the show. Guys, thank you for watching Relationships Matter, the podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Relationships matter. I need you.